that's exactly right. Where I actually might disagree on this is to say that it's truth. That is, we are seeking the truth, who is, after all, the way, the truth, and that'd be Jesus, yes. That'd be Jesus. So when I'm trying to figure this out in my political science classes, I'm asking Jesus to be present at every moment, every class. I ask him to be present, to wipe our eyes clean, to clear out our ears of the sinfulness that keeps us from finding out what God seeks for us in terms of justice and peace, which is eschatologically it's shalom. I think that's what we ought to be doing. And I think that this is a location that's unique where we can do this. There are not, even though, I've talked about the growth of Christians, there's just not enough. Right? So the other thing I want to say is about Heinz's point is exactly right. Hundreds of Christian college professors I spoke with, and to one of them, the ones that brought this up, would open, if I asked any one of them what the most difficult problem was, finding faculty. If you are not terrified of living in a dangerous zone in places or a difficult place, the Lord has need for Christian professors everywhere, in every discipline. I'm not kidding. You might not find a job like I did in Korea, which is a great place to teach, at a great university with fantastic students, right? You might find it in a really challenging place. But the Lord has need for people in this vineyard. Big need. Desperate need. Yeah. So I think Handong is doing remarkably well. There are lots of difficulties in growing a new institution. And we've had this selection sort of crisis as the new president comes in. Look, it's a new institution. Guess what happens? You go through these things. And I'm not disheartened. No, not at all. I think this is what happens. It's actually, you also have to recognize this is a Korea thing. Every university transition in Korea, whether it's Koshin University or Chongshin, they all go through these. Whenever there's a new president, it's just bloody. It's awful. Yeah? And that's much more Korean than it is something idiosyncratic to, you must be doing something wrong at Handong. No, you're not. I don't find it at all upsetting. I think this is what we do. We argue. I'm a Calvinist. Calvinists think things like total depravity. So when I find sin, I'm not surprised. I'm just like, this is what happens. We can irritate with each other. We still work at it, love it, keep going.
That might lead us to step back, following up on that question. What was the definition of Christian university that you used in this, in your
That's a great question.
Two
parts.
research.
We had to define both terms. What do we mean by Christian and what do we mean by university?
Right.
So university meant that it had to have more than two disciplines. So you could not, for example, Bishop Papasamy created a teacher's college. It's not included. It's only it's a standalone teacher's college.
Mm-hmm. So right? Seminaries would not be included.
A standalone seminary does not count. A seminary, teacher's college, and something else, that's a university in our definition. So it can't be just a single profession. Second thing, in terms of Christian, we were looking at the work of a guy named Robert Benny, who wrote a book, Quality with Soul, and there he gives us four kinds of different definitions, from ones that accept only Christians, to ones that have a critical mass of Christians, to ones who prefer but don't really, and ones that have a historic claim. So a historic claim would be like Harvard. That didn't count in our definition. We did not include any of those. We did not include we kind of prefer, but whatever. That doesn't count either.
Kind of prefer what?
We prefer Christians, but if
on our faculty?
On our faculty or students, but primarily as faculty. That was the decider, right? So if you didn't really care, so many Catholic universities don't make the cut because they don't really care if you believe as a Christian or not, so they don't count. So my university that I got my degree at, my PhD at, was Loyola University. It doesn't make the cut. We're looking for critical mass or greater. And the critical mass means that they're looking for a majority population of students that are Christian, and they really require faculty to be Christian. There may be a few exceptions, but for the most part, not.
And Christian is defined as historically consistent with the creed?
Yeah, and that was one part of it. The other part was whether historic Christianity, that's right, consistent with the creeds, or similar, because then you can't be careful, because we didn't want to throw out Pentecostals. Right? Pentecostals will not go with that creedal stuff. No creed but Christ, right? So what we did is ask, does their Christian faith play an instrumental role in the guiding and the selection and the curriculum of the university, of the institution? Granted, in some of these were judgment calls, some of them were tough. So there's a couple colleges in India that have very few Christian professors because they can't get them. And to keep the doors open, they continue to hire non-Christian professors. Well, that's a real tough call. Some are in, some are not. That's kind of where the boundaries lay in some of these judgment calls.
Thank you for your reply, Professor Lantinga. Any other questions to other professors, for instance? To Professor Schoenhoff or Professor Handong? Okay, Jason.
Do I stand up? My name is Jason Chang, and I'm studying international studies and counseling psychology. And my question is for Professor Enlow. You said that when universities are associated with state, it changes, and you've given Berkeley, Harvard, Yale, that has become secularized, and they can't hire Christian faculty anymore. Well, it became harder for them to work as Christians in those schools. It seems like our school, Handong, has become more associated with state projects. As time goes on than when it first started, how would you see that? Would you see that as something that we're doing wrong, or something that we should be careful of?
Yes, you have to be responsible.
I don't know if I can handle responsibility. Actually, your examples are wrong, but exactly right from my point. You pointed out that you gave the example of Harvard and Yale and Berkeley, which is part of the University of California system. That is a public university. But Harvard and Yale are private universities. They're accredited, but it's not accredited. Okay, it's not accredited. But they're private. My point is they're private universities, and they secularized long before they ever had any state involvement. And so while I totally agree that a Christian university is fundamentally at war with the modern secularist state, I don't believe that linking with the state is the cause of the problem. It seems to me that it's equally problematic, actually, when a school is affiliated with a church. That a university affiliated with a church is equally problematic because it's a mismatch of institutions. The church is the teacher of truth. There is something problematic about it, tying it to either the church or the state. What I was trying to say is that what the university, the Christian university today is doing is this. There is so much money, power, and prestige that are being funneled through the state form of the university, and the state uses the privileges it grants to universities as a way of favoring certain groups and disfavoring other groups. And that if you want anything like equality, you have got to play the game today. And when we call a Christian university, we are subverting the legal form of a state whose sole goal is to remove the cultural power of churches and other private organizations. And so your examples are exactly right. It's not just state power versus non-state power. There's nothing wrong with getting close to the state as long as you subvert what the state is trying to do. And Handong is a great example. This university, as God's University written across the front, is saying, you give us your money and we'll use it for Christ's sake. That's awesome. Harvard is a good example of people who take money and use it for hell, to drive people to hell. That's a good example of what not to do. But it's not private versus public. If we could be a public university and get all the public money and still keep God's university up there, I'd say we should do it. In fact, what we need to do is get more public power.
Even if we have to create reports that seem to comply with the guidelines and requirements by using language that satisfies the state overseers.
You always suggest an answer with your
I'm
question.
just asking a question.
Yes, I favor lying to the government. I favor using Satan's tools for Satan's ends. No, of course not. That's why I said if you could become a state institution. Of course we can, not without giving up what's more precious to us. We can't become a state institution, but we should go as far as we can honestly. And that's